beautiful cities on Earth. In my opinion, the city of Chicago, a city with a rich architectural tradition. So my job today is to talk about that tradition and how it came to be here. Architecture is art. You know, we don't often think of it as art the way we think of other art forms, but it is. So in viewing the city today, don't just see a city, try to see it as a living museum of art, and we're passing through it. Architecture is way more than just art, though. It's history, it's engineering, it's sociology, it's psychology, all combined together. So I'll talk about all those things along the way today. A little bit about me. I'm a bit of an architecture nerd. I'm pretty proud of that. Bridge houses, like those there, around the corners of this one. At the base of a bridge house typically is a small horsepower motor. All that motor has to do is raise and lower a concrete counterweight that's sunk beneath it. Each counterweight is calibrated to match the weight of each leaf or side of one of these bridges. Anytime they repaint one of these bridges with even one coat of paint, they have to go back later and recalibrate those weights. It throws off the balance between the two. It's an amazing thing to think about. They can be raised in a minute, lowered in another minute. They are raised and lowered for sailboats. This happens in the spring on a 6-week schedule. They do it again in the fall too for sailboats. They just go back to dry dock for the winter. Well, now we're on the river, and of course the name Chicago comes from the river itself, not the other way around. So it's a good tour to take along the river. The river is a geographic dividing line. More importantly, it's a cultural dividing line. And what I mean by that is everything to the left of the river is White Sox, to the right of us is Cubs. 1,000 feet high, it's this blue glass building there to the left that undulates. It's called Vista Tower. Vista will be done next year officially. It was just capped out though a few weeks ago. So now it's at its ultimate height, 1,191 feet. It's now the new third tallest building in Chicago. It's become the tallest building in the world, designed by a woman. Her name is Jeannie Gang. Her firm is called Studio Gang, based right here, an Illinois native who went to the University of Illinois. She graduated there, went to the School of Architecture at Harvard. She's pretty cool. She won a MacArthur Genius Grant. The three towers here stacked next to each other support each other. You can see the third tower has a floor up there. It's on the 83rd floor. It's a wider, taller floor. It's called a blow-through floor. It's a structural technique that we've never done before. It will continue to be hollow. No one will live there. It's simply there to allow for wind stresses to escape it. So the building doesn't do any swaying or oscillating with the wind. Wind is a serious factor in a windy city. We'll see along the way how architects over the years have kind of dealt with wind pressure and wind stresses. Another Jeannie Gang building greets us to the left, the one with those horizontal wavy lines surrounding that box. It's just past this triangle building here. It's called Aqua Tower. It was built in 2009. Those are all balconies. You can make out the guardrails right now at the corner. The other corner coming up. No two of those balconies are built to be the same. They're all built to be unique. She used software to do that. She ended up giving GPS coordinates to the contractors and filling in the concrete. They're not tacked on to the building. They're actually extensions of the floor plates themselves. There are two reasons they're all unique. First, she wanted to give everyone a unique view. So when we walk outside, they're able to look around other buildings to see things they might want to see, like the river, the lake, maybe Millennium Park, things like that. The other reason they're all unique is she said she did this for more social engagement. When residents walk outside, they can talk to their neighbors above them or beneath them easier than traditional balconies. She likes to design things that are giving things more of a community feel. This is why she's designed it this way. She started her career as a landscape architect. She cares about ecologies, especially birds. The glass of Aqua Tower is fritted glass, a textured glass that's designed to ward away birds, or they evade the building, so it's considered more humane on account of that. Buildings, not just skyscrapers, take out a lot of birds every year. On the right-hand side is a building in the distance with that gold onion-shaped dome, the smokestack next to it. That's the Intercontinental Hotel. It was built in 1929 as the Medina Athletic Club. This was one big private gym. It was financed by the Medina Shriners, the Shriners organization, who are typically fans of this kind of Middle Eastern, Moorish architecture. You can see at the top. If you walk around this neighborhood here where this is, you can see an old Medina club. It's now Bloomingdale's. That smokestack next to the dome was not originally built to be a smokestack. It was originally put in place to be a mooring station for blips, Zeppelins, rigid airships, those sorts of things, dirigibles. Sadly, no blimps landed at the top of it. It was really more of a publicity stunt. It was a marketing scheme on behalf of the Shriners to put it up there. Many other buildings around the country at one point had landing pads for blimps, and that includes the Empire State Building in New York. originally had a landing pad, but no blimps ever actually landed at the top of that building. Plus, a year later, 1937, the Hindenburg crash and burned in New Jersey. Ahead of us here is the white building, that clock tower at the south end of it. Beautiful building. You might know this. The Wrigley building is very iconic for Chicago. It's Wrigley Field, Wrigley Gum. The building here was completed in two parts by 1924, designed by the architects Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White, a name you'll hear a lot today. Their inspiration, their muse behind the clock tower, a thing called Giralda Tower in Sevilla, Spain. So we'd call this Spanish Revival style architecture. We have on our right again our Pencil building, 150 North Riverside, with that 30-foot wide base. There are two reasons they couldn't build wider. Structurally, they couldn't. Here's why. Because first, there are 7 active train lines that pass underneath and behind it. So you can see these fans and the whole society roared in the 20s. So Art Deco really spoke to that generation. It's an odd shape for a building, the Civic Opera building, throne shape. A lot of Art Deco is shaped like this here. Go to New York, their Art Deco looks different. It's not the same shape. The reason why is psychological. We were not used to this style in the 20s. We thought they would block off sunlight to ground level because they were getting so vertical. So in 1923, a law was passed that told architects that if they ever designed something over a certain footage, they had to make sure the roof did not exceed a fourth of the base. It had to be slimmer at the top to allow for light to reach ground level. So that's why you see a lot of throne-shaped or chair-shaped buildings here. This was built for business, so you have a theater for the opera where the words are, then you have office towers on the 3 sides to be leased out to different tenants, different businesses. It's going to be kind of a multi-revenue stream idea, and keeping up with the economic fervor of the 20s, a busy period. The sad part of it, though, built 1929, which was really the worst year for business, the year of the stock market crash, spurring on the Great Depression, a difficult decade for architects. And then after that came World War II, so it ended up being a 20-year period before a whole generation could really build again substantially. When they built again in the 50s, Americans embraced modern, this import from Europe, specifically Germany and maybe the Netherlands. A lot changed in those 20 years. I think about Art Deco being the Zelda Fitzgeralds dancing the Charleston. Now we have Don Draper, Mad Men. If you know Don Draper, he is stoic too, right? He's emotionless, cold. Kind of like this, so it's a good metaphor, I think. If nothing else, he would use this kind of architecture in the show. Having dealt with the Depression meant that Americans learned austerity, getting by with less, right? They weren't the opulent, extravagant, roaring generation anymore, so they preferred this less embellishments, less ornamented style. This ended up being corporate, though. You'd have companies like Ford or Chrysler, maybe GM, who commissioned these because they were cheaper and easier to build. You know, machine-like architecture versus handcrafted, utility versus beauty. That's what they prefer, utility. The public is all about beauty, right? We complain. People complained about this style back then. They say it's not pretty. The 60s and 70s. It doesn't look like decoration to us, but you know, for a generation, that was decorative. Unique aspect of this machine-like architecture is its universal space. You could take buildings like that and use it for anything. They were commercial office buildings, hospitals, schools, residential buildings. Kind of model skyscrapers, put them anywhere, they would fit. On the right is a smaller building coming up with X's on the outside, originally called the Mid-American Commodities Exchange Building in the early 70s. Those X's are special, they're load-bearing. What they do is they hold up the walls of the building, they free up the inside for what used to be a big trading floor in the middle. So you really don't need many pillars or columns to support the load of it from the inside. The X's would do it. Has anyone gone to that 360 tilt, the Hancock buildings? You've been to the Hancock, same idea, right? X's on the outside of that one too. Today this is home to a gym and a bakery right next to each other. That just seems like a contradiction to me. I would be tempted after my workout to get a scone or something. If you look to your left, past the street here is a mural of the river. That red dot is a "You Are Here." It's a small little map to let you know where you are right now. If you're interested, this mural is attached to a modernist building we didn't talk about on any architectural tour for years. And over the years, the building owners found out about the fact that people like me were not talking about them. So 5 years ago, they put this mural up, and now we're talking all about them. They basically wanted to be part of this architecture tour. This is why they did this. Marketing. Smart idea on their part. Past the next street on the right is an older Art Deco building. You might know it, actually, if you've seen The Dark Knight, the second one in the Batman trilogy. This was Gotham Bank in The Dark Knight, where they filmed the bank heist scene. So the bank robbers started out in another building at the top of the glass building here. They zip-lined over to this one. And went inside the bank, were stealing all the money. The Joker escapes with all the money in a school bus in this street, and you're in to get away. So this is our old main post office, where they filmed that. 1932 building, Graham Anderson, Probst and White. We've been the backdrop for a lot of filming. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Blues Brothers, which I've recently rewatched Blues Brothers. It is not dated to me. It's still a good movie. Check that one out if you haven't seen it. It's still funny, I think. Blues Brothers. So our old main post office, 1932. It's huge, 2.5 million square feet of space inside it. It's enormous. It was built big to accommodate the mail order catalog industry, which was huge at one point. Montgomery Ward, Spiegel, Butler Brothers, Sears and Roebuck. Amazon on its day. The irony there that being that the internet and the Amazon kind of killed the building as the internet took over for retail, they printed less and less of those catalogs, so it became inefficient to use. It's too big at that point for sorting mail and packages, so in 1996, the workers left. They abandoned the building to go to a better post office. You can see the Strand building up there. That's the newer, better one. Smaller, more efficient. So this one stayed abandoned for more than 20 years until just recently. It was purchased by a New York company, 601 West. 601 West is now investing $600 million into it to turn it into a new office building. So there will be a river walk here to the right. So they're currently working on, the roof will be a green roof eventually at the top of the park. Tenants have already signed on. This includes Walgreens. We've recently seen their banners along the north end of the building. I think they plan to move in by the end of the year, if not early next year. Speaking of developments, that's exciting. Even the cooler thing is happening to our left, past Harrison. A redevelopment called South Bank being built. It's being headed up by a company called Lend-Lease. Further south, past the curvy concrete building, will be another thing that will get built called Riverfront, Chicago, by a different company. And then south of Roosevelt, the next street, a whole other thing will get built over the next 20 years or so. Well, let's just stick to South Bank and Riverline for now. These two things, these projects will get done by the year 2026. It will stretch from Harrison Street, stop at Roosevelt. 3,600 residential units here are planned by 2026. Mostly apartments. The apartment market is the bigger market right now. So 10 large apartment buildings will be here eventually. The Riverwalk will be opened up for the public. I think by the end of the year we've seen the residents actually walk out, enjoy it already. They also plan to dedicate 3.5 acres of this to green spaces, integrating a lot of the river into it too, so now the river is again an amenity. Something we're enjoying. Chicagoans love their green spaces, our parks, Grand Park, Millennium Park, Lincoln Park, Humboldt Park. I live in West Town near Humboldt Park. Recently we had an alligator, Chance the Snapper, they caught Chance the Snapper, a baby alligator in the lagoons there. We were on Gator Watch for a while. Chance has been moved to Florida now, so better climate, I think. Once it's all done, these two new things, South Bank and Riverline, Chicago, will enclose and encapsulate this curved linear building you can see to the left. You know the architect already, Bertrand Goldberg of Marina City. Those corn cobs, same idea here. Not a corn cob, it's a corn cob rolled out. Bauhaus was shut down in the early 30s. Mies later moved to Chicago and he started teaching at a school we have here. We now call it the Illinois Institute of Technology, IIT. And this school has become its own incubator for all sorts of innovations in architecture, also architects. Many of them, Fazler Khan, an engineer, along with Bruce Graham, the architect. Today, the Sears Tower is the second tallest in the United States. One World Trade Center in New York gets the title. If you upgraded One World Trade Center, put it next to the Sears Tower, you went up the roof of Sears, you'd be able to look down at the roof of One World Trade Center beneath you. Their building is taller because of a spire. The spires count, their aesthetic antenna like ours do not count towards the height of the Sears Tower. So we feel they cheated. That's alright. It's fine, neighbor. You can do that. the sky deck already? If you haven't, you can check out what everyone likes to visit. Oftentimes are those full boxes that hang on this thing called that long wait. It used to be like 2-hour waits. So, pretty cool thing to do. Some people crawl out to the ledges. That's their strategy for dealing with the height. A few weeks ago, one cracked. You might know that. They made it many layers of glass. The safety layer cracked. They've described it. It's like a screen protector on your iPhone. So it's still safe, but terrifying, right, to think about that. As I mentioned, today's second tallest in the United States. In 1981, a skyscraper climber named Dan Goodwin scaled the all 110 floors of the building using skyhooks and such the Citibank off the building next to it. So they're kind of trying to mimic or pay respect to them. One of my personal favorite buildings, I think it's overlooked oftentimes as an art piece, is the blue glass building there to the left, that curvy glasswork. It's called the Citibank building, built 1987. It was designed to look like a waterfall. It's really delicate, really lovely, I think. It's often overlooked. It was designed by an architect named Helmut Jahn. He also attended IIT. He designed the Thompson Center. You might know that. It's not too far from here in the Loop. The Thompson Center was designed by him too. Helmut Jahn. On our left-hand side, another Art Deco design, 2 North Riverside Plaza, originally called the Chicago Daily News Building, an old newspaper. You look closely by the clock, those detailed bas-reliefs of people writing, chiseling, each one is a journalist. So these are journalists like Joseph Blitzer, Joseph Medal, Horace Greeley, Benjamin Franklin. The Daily News cost a penny. They were widely read versus the Tribune, which cost a little more. So there was at one point kind of a class difference between the two newspapers. This is the newspaper that Carl Sandburg, that same poet-journalist, started his career in, the Daily News. The architects were inspired by the Sphinx in Egypt in building this. The light posts in front, Egyptian obelisks. Egypt became a major theme in the 20s. They had just discovered King Tut's tomb in 1922. So it really became pop culture in Egypt. On the right, they're building a new skyscraper, 110 North Wacker. This will be done next year. Once this is done, it will be the tallest all-commercial office building we have built in 30 years, since 2 Prudential Plaza was built. They're building a 45-foot river walk past these tree-lit columns, like to be tree branches. Really interesting, these columns. The architects behind this 110 Wacker are Getch Partners, the same ones who designed 150 North Riverside. Which one? I forget the actual height of it, but it's going to get taller. Now, it won't be taller than 2 Prudential, as I know it, but it'll be the tallest all-commercial we have built. So not mixed use, as we've done for such a long time. For 30 years, right? We haven't really done that. So this will be really innovative and really cool. This will be 110, and 155 is the one that you were talking with your son, right? Yeah. Putting up a curtain wall, see the one? Yep. Very cool, project manager of that one. Of course, I'm talking about architects, but you know, these things don't get built without the contractors, the construction people, so they're integral, right? We need those. 150 North Riverside has some really cool technology. At the top floor are 12 tanks of water. The 12 tanks contain 160,000 gallons of water. They're put there to offset the sway from wind pressure coming at it. When wind stress hits the building, wind hits it, inertia means the building goes one direction, the water slushes in the opposite direction to keep the building from oscillating or swaying too much in the wind. They're called tuned inertial slosh dampeners, a liquid dampening system that keeps it stable. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy. It's awesome though. It's good. The physics there is pretty cool to think about. Behind the red brick building used to be an older building, no longer there, called the Wigwam. The Wigwam was a convention center and tavern. In 1860, it hosted the Republican National Convention where they picked Abraham Lincoln to be their nominee. So the building isn't there now, but there's a plaque where that Lincoln nomination occurred. Ahead of us, they're building a new apartment building, Wolf Point East. They want that to be done by the end of the year. Once they're done with that, they plan to build a third building in the center. The Salesforce Tower will be more than 800 feet high, Salesforce Tower. So we're building again quite a bit. They plan to build a not a Riverwalk, a plaza between all 3. On our right here is this curved building, the 2 tones of green glass, 333 Wacker Drive. Completed 1983. You might know it if you've seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Ferris's dad was on this here in the film. You see it briefly. It's not a big part of the movie, but at least it's there. The 2 tones of green glass are meant to be in context to the river and the sky. They pitched the windows to give it a wave look. At the bottom are columns. They're octagons. Those octagons were in context, or designed to be in context, to the corners of the merchandise mart. You can see a lip of gray granite here in the middle. It sticks out a few feet. We'll see it again as we cross the bridge here. That lip of gray granite sticks out the height. It's another called the Leo Burnett Building. Leo Burnett, an advertising agency producing things like Snap, Crackle, and Pop, Pillsbury Doughboy, Jolly Green Giant. The list goes on. If you look ahead of you to the right, above the Morton Steakhouse sign is that gold-topped building, the green terracotta body beneath it. Looks a bit like an old-school champagne bottle. This is the Carbide and Carbon Building, 1929, designed by the Burnham brothers, the sons of the late great David Burnham. That is 24 karat gold and organized crime and jewelry theft, bigger numbers on this street. And Chicago drank its way through Prohibition. On the right-hand side is an imbalanced space and structure area. We've seen a balance before with Wolf Point West. Now we have an imbalance, all structure, no space. A wall of architecture. It's something we try to avoid. It's something we don't like to see here. Walls feel imposing, feel intimidating. Maybe compare the feeling, the look of that wall to the plaza across the way where the Trump Tower is. Feels better, looks better.